Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. Just the hands again today. The new studio, well, it kind of looks like the old studio, doesn't it? The new studio is not quite ready. Can you smell paint? I can. It needs another couple of coats though. Either the weekend or probably the middle of next week. There's still a few things that I need to get done, but the show must go on. And let's face it, talking hands never did Andrew Morgan any harm. What have I got today in the box? I have Revelot. I have their brand new Hexmariner 42, and I have got two of them to show you. While I'm getting them out of the box, let's have a look at some outdoor footage and talk about the brand. I'm sure you saw the pop-up, but I'll tell you anyway. This video is sponsored by Revelot. I will of course therefore leave a link to the Hexmariner 42 listing on their website in the description of the video. They're taking pre-orders for a limited number of these at the moment, and I think a number of colour versions have already sold out. So if you like what you see here and in the rest of the video, get on it quickly because they're probably not going to last until the weekend. Now, I first encountered the brand about 18 months ago when Kevin, the owner, got in touch asking me if I'd be interested in reviewing the original Hexmariner 42. Unfortunately, I was too busy at the time, but I know a man who bought one. Mr. P bought one, and I had a shot of it in his office one day, and my goodness, I thought, how on earth do they do these watches for the money? Those ones were mid-200s. These ones are a little more expensive, but they're still under the $300 mark, depending on which version you go for. We may as well talk about price then. Here are the different colour versions of this watch that are available. Here are the different numbers of each colour version that are available, and here are their corresponding prices. From just under 300 to 400 plus for the Meteorite versions. I've got an Aventurine dial and a full Lume dial, both around $330. That is great value for money, especially when you see how well the watches are made. So what is it then? Well, there's a clue in the name, Hexmariner. Revelot aren't shy, they're not backwards about telling you what they're doing. They genuinely take inspiration from classic watches and then homage them in their own way. For example, so far I looked at one of their models that had a fairly strong resemblance to a universal Genève pole router, and another clearly inspired by Gerald Genta's designs from the 1970s. This one, it should be crushingly obvious, is inspired by the Rolex Submariner, but with lots and lots and lots of angles. Everything on this watch has got an extra chamfer, an extra edge or two, and there are hexagons all over the place. If you like light play with this one, you probably already saw what it looked like outside. It is pretty spectacular. If you're not a fan of the hexagon though, well, this clearly is not the watch for you. In terms of dimensions, I've referred to this one as the Hexmariner 42 a couple of times. They actually do a 39mm version as well, but this is the bigger one, so 42mm in diameter, bang on 13mm thick, with a 47.5mm lug tip to lug tip. Slightly larger lug width today, 22mm. The bracelet does taper down to 19.5, back up to 21.5 at the clasp. Now, sized up for me, I had to remove 3 full-size links. That means there are 3 full-size links spare. I've got an average size 7-inch wrist, by the way, 175 grams. Fair bit of chunk to it then. Flat sapphire crystal, screw down crown, 200 meters of water resistance, exactly the same as the Rolex. Not the same as the Rolex though, the movement in this one is pretty basic. It is a Seiko NH35. Now you can sort of see the NH35 through that hexagon covered display case back. You know this is going to be on my moans and niggles list later on. I do not understand why brands put a display case back on a watch and then cover it in a pattern or something so you can't see the movement. What on earth is the point? Anyway, the pattern does actually look quite good, especially when it's in gold. 24 jewel hacking and hand winding. Auto by Seiko, bi-directional winding, rugged, robust, reliable, if not particularly accurate. You've all seen hundreds before, I know I have. Case finish, definitely a standout, super fine brushing on the mid case, and that lovely high polish chamfer all the way around to the tips of the lugs across the top of the case. It's on the top of the crown guards as well. Just brings an extra element to this style of case. Not a lot of curvature, slight downturn from the lugs. It's a Lume crown as well with the Revelot brand logo. They're a Malaysian based company. That I believe is the Malaysian star from the Malaysian flag. Now the bezel on this one, 120 click, unidirectional, rotating dive time. It's a nice action and everything lines up properly. It's quite a thick bezel insert, as you can see here. Nicely proportionate with a dial though, you can get away with it when you have 42mm to play with. Big numerals, nice and easy to read. Now the bracelet is all angles just like the case itself, kind of half a hexagon if you look at it from the side. Thankfully they haven't put angles on the underside, they've kept it curved for comfort. Mostly brushed, but they've got high polished chamfers on the edge, high polished chamfer running down the edges of the clasp as well. Again, the Malaysian star in the middle there, 5 holes of micro adjust. Now it is only a pressed upper double security pusher, but it is a milled scissor. No on the fly adjustment today. That will also be appearing in the Moans and Niggles section. Let's switch to the macro lens for a look at the dial and hands, and the word of the day today, folks, is hexagon. Count them if you dare. All of those indices, all applied, all hexagonal. 3 big ones at the 12, the 3 and the 9, 8 small ones elsewhere. And there's a hexagonal waffle pattern covering the dial. The hands are hexagonal. They've also got mixed finish, brushed on the top, polished on the side. Check out the second hand. It has a hexagonal counterbalance and a hexagonal lollipop. And yet, you know what? I don't think it looks overdone. This is the type of thing at arm's length, you would have to look at it really close up to notice the fine details, to notice all those little shapes. I think it's really nicely done. Also nice is the fact that they have engraved the rehaut just like on a Rolex Submariner, except it says Revelot Hexmariner. And that is the Aventurine rose gold and blue combo. Very nice indeed. These ones I think were around $330. I suspect they may have sold out pretty swiftly though. That's a great price for a piece of Aventurine, and it looks really good in combination with the rose gold. Let's check out the Lume then. Both of these watches look quite different after dark because they have gone for quite different Lume treatments. The Aventurine dial has BGW9, the mint colour, although it looks more like pistachio to me, has C3 Superluminova old radium style on the hands, the indices, and also on the dial. If I turn the speed up on these, you can see the dial fades first, but the hands, the indices, the bezel inserts on both watches still glowing brightly at the end of my 20-minute test. I reckon I've just about got enough good Lume watches in the house for an installment of Lume Wars. Stay tuned for that one next week. That's it on wrist. I have got a 7-inch wrist as mentioned. Chunky at 175 grams, but it wears quite well. 13mm thick isn't super slim, but no case back protrusion, so it sits flat. And good choice, I think, going for a 22mm lug width. Bit of a taper. That does balance out both the weight and gives just a little bit more meat on the wrist. Helps keep the thing in situ. I've already talked about light play with all of those angles. The Aventurine just adds another layer to all of that. You can see the little sparkles glistening away as I roll my wrist. Some people will like that, some people will not like that. If you don't like it, don't buy the Aventurine. So far so good. You get a lot of watch for $300 and I think a really nicely done watch head for $300, but I have got some moans and niggles of course. Hexagons, Hexmariner, millions of hexagons all over the dial. Why then is the most prominent shape on this watch a diamond, a pentagon? I do not understand why that is not a hexagon on the bezel as well. It seems like a bit of a miss, doesn't it? As discussed, I do not understand why you would put a display case back on a watch and then put a pattern all over the middle of it. Perhaps they'd have been better doing an oil pressed or etched all metal case back with hundreds of hexagons on it as well, if that's what they wanted. And the watch head today is nicer than the bracelet. You can see where, if not where the money was saved, but certainly where the money wasn't spent. It wasn't spent on the bracelet. Now it is push pins, or at least you think it's push pins when you see the arrow there. So I got my push pin tool out, I gave it a squeeze and out popped a pin and collar system. I gave out a silent whimper. Yeah, that was pretty much it. I never am a big fan of pin and collar systems, so yeah, not my preferred method. And the clasp, definitely the cheapest feeling component of the watch. Few sharp edges. You can feel that it's pressed and not particularly thickly pressed on the upper, and this watch has quick release end links, but it doesn't have an on-the-fly adjustable system. For 300 plus these days, I would love to see that. Perhaps for the Hexmariner 3, we will see that. And I'm sure some people are going to balk at even the vague association with the Rolex Submariner. Really, it's kind of in name only. There's very little of this watch that resembles the Rolex. The date's in a different position, the indices are all different, the profile, the silhouette is all different, the bracelet is quite different. So yeah, a homage in the loosest sense of the word, but yeah, some people are still not going to appreciate that. But overall, good looking, well done, well made, and some really interesting colour versions. I think this kind of pistachio mint green is definitely one of the picks. You don't see this colour very often. If you are in the market for a $300 diver, you could definitely do a lot worse than having a good look at one of these. So there you have it, well done for making it to the end of the video. Having said that, if you are all dive watched out, why not have a look at one of their other offerings? I'll see you all again in the next one.